go over this contract, exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. And we also will look at property management agreement. We reviewed exclusive right of sale leasing agreement already. Exclusive right to lease. We will also review, actually let's review this one, and if we have time, this one. Okay, exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. So let me open it up in that loop. I gave an interview to Datloop 2 weeks ago about the predictions of the market. They have very good, like blog too. So if you want to stay aware of like what's going on and, read some real estate news, if you go to just their main website before you log in, you can check the blog over there. We go to templates, and then we go to, let's open up your realty branded forms, exclusive. There we go, exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. We need to make sure that we select exclusive buyer brokerage agreement transaction broker, because we are transaction brokerage, okay? We're not single agency. We can work both with buyers and sellers. Remember from school, it's a difference there between single agency, transaction brokerage. So we are by default transaction brokerage. Okay, so this is the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. When do we use it? Florida specifics of our state is that there are a lot of international clients, right? And we are very international, place, especially South Florida. I'm not talking about maybe somewhere in the Panhandle, like Pensacola over there, or where me and Ricardo went to school, like Gainesville. Still a lot of international students, but who buys apartments there are more locals. Over here, we work a lot with international buyers, investors. So if you start working with one of them, let's say, Maria, you have a client from Ecuador, right? And you send him listings once, you send him emails, you've talked on the phone a couple of times. Then he asks you more questions. You start investing more time into that. You send more listings. You spend more time with this client. You do Zoom conference calls. Then they telling you, okay, Maria, we would like to come and visit Miami, and we would like to buy some properties. That happens a lot when the clients from other like countries or different, like, international, like for example, they're coming from CIS region or from South America. It's kind of the same story over there. In these countries, the real estate business is not structured the way it is structured in the US. So our job is to educate them. And for me, it was a learning curve too, because I since I was 16, I grew up in the US. I went to university here. I know how law works. But for example, my parents, they're different, because I had to educate them that they can't call 10 realtors at the same time and ask them the same thing to go and look for properties. This is not how business is done here. Because, for example, in Moscow, or I know in Ecuador, same thing when I went to visit, or even in Kazakhstan, you have a building, you have apartment, and there's unlimited number of companies who can market them. And this is normal for if you live there, right? So when I used to live in Moscow, I remember, when we buy apartment, we can call multiple agents, and then it sometimes it's normal that the seller will be selling it directly, and he also working with multiple realtors, and it's always this conflict over there. Over here, it's different, and we need to educate our buyers, especially if they come from different country. Let's say from Kazakhstan. So Bella will start working with some investors from Kazakhstan. At the beginning, you need to start educating them slowly, but definitely telling them, I'm a licensed real estate agent. I work with a licensed real estate brokerage. We will be representing you. And when they ready to come, or like sometimes before that, it's very good to sign with them exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. What does it mean? That you will write up what they're looking for in this agreement. I mean, we can go over. So for example, let's say we are representing private equity fund from Ecuador. So buyer, we can say Ecuador investment equities, I don't know, LLC. Is there LLCs, Maria, in Ecuador, or it's different abbreviation?
No, the same.
Okay, so LLC. Then we put real estate broker and office. You put your name here.
Limitada.
And then the exclusive right, so parties, Ecuador Investments Equities LLC grants Maria Price with Ver Realty LLC, the broker, the exclusive right to work with and assist buyer in locating and negotiating the acquisition of suitable real property as described below. The term acquire or acquisition includes any purchase, option, exchange, lease, or other acquisition of an ownership or equity interest in real estate. This agreement will begin on. So it will begin on the date, let's say, when they planning to come. Let's say they're planning to come on June 30th. So 30th day of June 2020, and will terminate on the, usually I put the year 29 day of June 2021. And it's always like one day less. However, if buyer enters into an agreement to acquire property that is pending on the termination date, this agreement will continue in effect until the transaction has closed or otherwise terminated. Property. Buyer is interested in acquiring real property as follows or as otherwise acceptable to buyer. Type of property. Let's say they're looking for commercial multifamily. So we will say commercial properties, including multifamily. Because sometimes they will treat multifamily as a residential if it has less than 4 units. So that way we protect us even if they buy, residential, like 3 units triplex, let's say, right? If they asked you about some residential property, so you discussed it with them or you send them, you can also say residential properties. Or specify it. You can say single family houses. Right? Try to be specific there, because they also, when you try to include everything, they will say, oh, you didn't present it to us, why will you need to sign that? Then you said, look, I send you single family houses where you can invest in and get some profit, right? Then we discuss commercial properties, office buildings, etc. And we discuss multifamilies. Okay. And I included this. That's why. So always have an explanation, because they will be asking you why. Location. Let's say they tell you we would like to explore, Miami. I heard Palm Beach is nice. So then you can say Tri-County area. What does it mean? Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade. It's all included. Or you can say just Tri-County area. That way they don't have much questions, but you protect yourself. Price range. So this is usually, you will determine that during the conversations. They'll tell you their maximum budget. So let's say you discuss the multifamily property in the budget of $3 million. You can put 4 million to make sure to be on the safe side. And then the minimum investment, let's say 100,000, because if they will ask you to buy them single family. This is, I think, the least price you can get single family for now. I mean, you can put zero if you discuss something, some small apartments, but again, this is for you to justify. Next one, buyer has been pre-qualified, pre-approved by. So this is not mandatory, but if they have, pre-qualification, some sort of, or pre-approval from local bank, that you can state that as well. Preferred terms and conditions. This is in terms of purchase, right? They can pay cash or they can finance part of it. Finance part of the deal. That's it. Then we have broker obligations. So broker assistance. Broker will use broker professional knowledge and skills, assist buyer in determining buyer's financial capability and financing options, discuss property requirements, and assist buyer in locating and viewing suitable properties, assist buyer to contract for property, monitor deadlines, and close any resulting transaction. Cooperate with real estate licensees working with the seller, if any, to effect a transaction. Buyer understands that even if broker is compensated by a seller or real estate licensee who is working with the seller, such compensation doesn't compromise broker's duties to buyer. Okay, this is another point. Many buyers, they don't know that seller paying commission, right? So this is actually a benefit for them, because I know in Latin America, in CIS region, like Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, buyer pays commission too. Over here, seller pays commission. I mean, sometimes it's negotiable, but most of the time, seller pays commission. Okay. Other buyers understands that, and this is why it says here, cooperation with real estate licensees working with the seller, if any, to effect a transaction. Buyer understands that even if broker is compensated by a seller, that means that even it's very hard to understand sometimes for international clients. Oh, really? Like, you spend time with me and I don't pay you anything, but you represent, like, you want me to invest in good property. Like, why are you interested in that? This is how business done here. It's just different concept. It was done through, again, trial and error for last 50 years. I mean, US real estate market is more sophisticated and more stable and more organized. That's why we have all this process in place, and it's very clear. You can check all the history of the property. You can check who were the owners before. In other countries, sometimes very hard. It's not obvious. It's hard to find information. That's the beauty of US market and the system here. Then other buyers. Buyers understands that broker may work with other prospective buyers who want to acquire the same property as buyer. If broker submits offers by competing buyers, broker will notify buyer that a competing offer has been made, but will not disclose any of the offer's material terms or conditions. Buyer agrees that broker may make competing buyers aware of the existence of any offer buyer makes, so long as broker doesn't reveal any material terms or conditions of the offer without buyer's prior written consent. Fair housing. Broker adheres to the principles expressed in the Fair Housing Act and will not participate in any act that unlawfully discriminates on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, country of national origin, etc. So this is clear, right? This is Fair Housing Act. In the office, we have also the printouts that we can, it's in the books also, like we cannot discriminate on basis of all this. Service providers. Broker doesn't warrant or guarantee products or services provided by any third party whom broker at buyer's request refers or recommends to buyer in connection with property acquisition. Okay. One more time, like broker doesn't warrant. So the broker doesn't give any warranties, warrants or guarantees, guarantee products or services provided by any third party whom broker and buyer. So that means that, let's say your international investor asks, Bella, can you recommend banking institution with whom we can get financing? You're saying, yes, definitely I can. But it doesn't mean that they will get approved right away by them. So this paragraph takes responsibility from you for referring somebody, for providing, like, let's say, title work or attorney or financing or any other, like inspectors, handymans. You're not responsible for them, and don't have to be. Sometimes international clients will tell you, oh, you recommend me this guy and now he screwed me up. You negotiated with him some repairs. You've been doing that. I wasn't involved in that. I referred him because, yes, I've done some work with him, but I'm not responsible for what he's doing. Obviously, we want to recommend only the best people, but you never know. Sometimes people can go crazy and do something wrongful, and this paragraph provide basically lift off our responsibilities based on that. Next one, buyer obligations. What buyer obligations are? Buyer agrees to cooperate with broker in accomplishing the objectives of this agreement, including conducting all negotiations and efforts to locate suitable property only through broker, and referring to broker all inquiries of any kind from real estate licensees, property owners, or any other source. If buyer contacts or is in contact by a seller or real estate licensee who is working with the seller of used property unaccompanied by broker, so that protects you from unethical licensees who can contact your buyer directly. Providing broker with accurate, and I mean, by default we are protected here if you have shown the property with if they look at the property with you as an agent. That's by default means that you're working with them. But sometimes it's hard to track these deals. You will find out by accident. Oh, look, they bought the house which I showed them, and this other licensee didn't tell me. So you tell me this right away, and I will pursue their broker. Officially, legally, I have forms which I sent, which provides you protects your interest, because you obligated to get paid. You did your work, you looked for property, you showed it, you spent time, effort, and this has to be compensated. And this happens still. It's sometimes, I mean, it's unfortunate, but this happens. So next one. So buyer obligations are also being available to meet with broker at reasonable times for consultations and view properties, identifying and holding broker harmless from and against all losses, damages, costs, and expenses of any kind, including attorney fees, and from liability to any person that broker incurs because of acting on buyer's behalf. Not asking or expecting to restrict the acquisition of the property according to race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, etc. Consulting an appropriate professional for legal tax, environmental, engineering, foreign reporting requirements, and other specialized advice. This is an important part too, because international buyers, they always ask you, what about taxes? What do I pay, etc. And you can tell them what you know, but you always have to add a disclosure. I'm not a professional legal or tax consultant. I can tell you what I know, but you can't quote me on that. I can refer you to professional tax advisor and lawyer, legal consultant, engineering, like foreign reporting agency. I know all of them. I have partnerships with you. Like we work with, like Lolita. She's doing a lot of international taxation law, and she knows. So you can always ask her questions about that. But you can't really give advice. You can tell what you know, but you always have to give a disclosure. So when your clients start asking you, and especially if locally, like U.S. citizens asking you about taxes, about some legal aspects, you always need to give them disclosure. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not tax advisor. I cannot advise you on that aspect, but what I know I can tell you. But don't base your decision based on this. So that way you protect yourself. Okay. Retainer. Upon final execution of this agreement, buyer will pay broker a non-refundable retainer fee for brokerage services retainer. This fee is not refundable and will not or will be credited to buyer if compensation is earned by broker as specified in this agreement. What does it mean? Let's say you got approached by this firm, investment equities. It's a small corporation. They have many investments. They asking you for a lot of questions, and you're doing a lot of work already. So in that case, you can tell them that you guys will pay a retainer of like $10,000, and it will be credited towards the purchase when we sign the contract. So let's say you've done all this work, you've been working them for half a year, you have this $10,000 retainer, and this is on commercial properties, it's totally fine. And they say, oh, you know, Bella, we changed our mind completely. We have changed our direction in business planning. We will focus on local investments right now. And you're like, okay, but you have a retainer. That way you can be compensated for all this work with what you've done. And that way, if they don't go on the contract, you keep the $10,000. Okay. In case if it's a smaller property, you're working with the investor who wants to buy like a small house. I mean, sometimes it's hard to justify that if you're not doing much work, but you still can ask for at least $1,000, and if they go on the contract, it will be credited towards the purchase. So you use it as a deposit. And at the beginning, I didn't ask, but with experience when I was working with foreign buyers, I mean, many of them will not make a move if they haven't paid something upfront. So with some countries, some nationalities, it works better. I mean, you can justify that. I'm not sure how it's done like in some countries, but for example, with clients from like Russia or from Belarus, I will ask for retainer. If it's a $500,000 or less property, I will ask for $5,000 because I will tell them, look, you'll pay 5,000. Yeah, I'm doing work for you. We're going here and there. And when you're ready to buy, you make a contract. We will use this $5,000 as a deposit. But if you will not make any contract during this, I mean, if you're not going to make any offer during this contract, it's 1 year of my work with you. I will keep it. That's it. Because they can fly in a few times, spend your time, etc. This is it's a specific one specific to international clients. Then compensation. So is this part clear? Number 6 is a very important part.
Yes, I like this part about especially when work with someone who doesn't live here. It's great. I like it.
Yeah, this is very good.
Yes, because people, they can only watch years after years and nothing to buy, and I always worry about how to do this, and it's good.
Yeah, so this number 6 will protect your investments, protect investment of your time with this client. And if it's $1 million purchase, you ask for 10,000. And when this client come to see these properties, if they're ready to pay that, showing that they're sophisticated and they have money. Like I would just, they will give me cash at the first meeting. I'll deposit it to the escrow. That's it. I know, and for me, it's much better because I know I'm secured. I know that they're serious. They find sometimes, as an investor in real estate, people will ask me, I don't want to talk to you, pay me something upfront just to talk. And it's normal. We pay like $2,000 just to talk with the owner of certain property to see if he's willing to sell. So when people are buying commercial real estate, it's a significant investment of capital, and they will treat you more professionally when you will tell them, look, you deposit $10,000. It will be credited as a first deposit when we put something on the contract. And if you don't make any moves in the year, this is my compensation. That's it.
That's great.
So I think this should be, it's a must, especially in commercial properties. Definitely. Next one is number 7, compensation. Broker's compensation is earned when during the term of this agreement or any renewal or extension, buyer or any person acting on behalf of buyer contacts to acquire real property as specified in this agreement. Buyer will be responsible for paying broker the amount specified below plus any applicable taxes, but will not be credited with any amount which broker. So this is basically, it's asking if you want to add any additional compensation from broker, from the buyer. So one more time, broker compensation is earned when during the term of this agreement or any renewal extension, buyer or any person acting for on behalf of buyer contacts to acquire real property as specified in this agreement. Buyer will be responsible for paying broker the amount specified below plus any applicable taxes. Usually here, I put 0 because we got compensated by the other party. But in case, lease is the same. So, usually it's, usually we put 0, but there is one but here. Sometimes if it's commercial and some of the properties are off market, and if it's off market, then seller is not paying commission, like period. They're not paying commission. And this is your obligation now to ask for commission. So here you can put 3%. We can put 0 here, but we will add additional text. Text. And it will say, if not compensated by seller, buyer will pay 3%. Okay. Same with lease. Just add this field, but in the lease you put 10%. This is very important, especially in commercial. Option, broker will be paid the option amount selected. On options, it's usually also like you can put 3% here. Option is when, it's very rare. Again, it's in mostly in commercial properties, but it's option to buy. And international buyers, they very rarely use it. But what does it mean? It's option. You can give an option contract in form of an option to purchase. So let's say you have Maria selling her apartment. Bella has a client from Kazakhstan. He wants to buy it. Bella's client telling Bella, look, I want to pay $10,000 for the availability for me to buy this property in 1 month for $300,000. If I don't buy this property, then this $10,000 goes to Maria just by default. And also if he buys it, it goes towards the purchase price. So it's more in commercial real estate when you see very nice property, but you're thinking that market conditions will change. Similar like to this situation right now with COVID. We don't know what will happen like in half a year with prices in commercial real estate. So you can say, oh, I see this office building. I think it will go down in price for like $300,000. Let me put an option to buy it in half a year for lower amount or for higher amount, Depends how you think the market will act. So it's like more in finance world. You have, if you ever invest in stocks, this is the instrument which they use. It's option to buy something. And it can be done with anything. But with real estate, again, it's only in conditions when there is market uncertainty. Or let's say back in 2008, there was done a lot of options because people knew that the market will go up. So they will give a lower price for the property with an option. Let's say the property is on the market for $200,000. They will tell, in half a year, I want to be able to buy this property for the same price, but I will pay for that $10,000. So you kind of buying time from the seller. Is this clear? How or no?
Not clear.
Not clear. Okay. Example. Let's say in finance, it's the stock market, right? You have let's say Vera Realty has a shares where we can. No, it's a bad example. Let's do this back to real estate. There is a house on the market right now for, let's say, $10 million. You think that you think that this house will worth $15 million in a year, because you think like that. You think that this area is booming, it's great, but you don't want to pay right now $10 million because you're not sure. But in a year, you will see, and you will understand if this house worth 15 million, right? So how you can lock this house for yourself in order to be able to buy it in a year. You give the seller or the owner cash to hold it. On $10 million, it can be $500,000. You're saying, look, Mr. Seller, I give you $500,000. You lock this house for me for the year. And in a year, I can buy it for 10 million, no matter what.
But if a seller changed his mind, he decided, this is after a while, if it's happened, he will...
He refund back the option. It has to be this money which they put, which they hold, has to be interesting for both sides. The seller should be afraid to lose it, and the buyer should be afraid to lose it as well. So it's very rare that this will happen. If somebody asking you about that, you can ask me.
Okay.
And I'll
yes, I will ask you, because I understand. But for example, if I after a while, after a year, my home was being cost $10 million and right now $50 million. I decided to pay you $10,000 back and to sell my own $50 million. Why I should to share with you? I don't know.
Exactly. But
I will pay you $10,000 and I make more money for $40 million. It's okay. It's great.
It depends how the contract for purchase is structured. How it's different contract. This is only telling you that if the option is there, you can get compensated. Let's say 50% of the amount, or like 25% of the amount which was hold there. Yep.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. So then protection period, buyer will pay broker compensation if within, I usually put 90 days after the termination date, buyer contacts to acquire any property which was called to buyer attention. So let's say you send them listings, and after 90 days of the expiration of the agreement, they want to buy it, but they go, for example, with different broker. In terms of 90 days, you still are obligated to get compensated for it. Special clauses, we can leave it blank. If there's something, specific, you can state that.
Vale. I'm sorry. I'm calling my daughter.
Okay. We'll do another agreement next time.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of information today. Thank you.
All affiliates of Ecuador Investments Equities LLC. So everybody who connected with this company also will be in charge and obligated to pay under this agreement.
Nico is LTDA, no LLC.
Oh, LTD. Okay, LTD.
LTDA.
LTD. Yeah, this is like in Britain, limited trade something. I forgot. LTD. Usually in UK is like that. Okay, so this was exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. We recorded. So, Irene, this meeting was recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay. So use it when you work with foreign international buyers, international investors. It will save you time and make you money. So I think that's it for today.
Thank you. Great advice. I like this as contract, right?
Good. So use it.